everybody, and happy Monday. Of course, you know what time that is. So if you haven't already, go grab your favorite cup of hot cocoa, a few cookies, pull up a chair, and sit and chat with me a while in today's episode of Cocoa and Cookies. I hope all of you have had a great weekend, and let me go ahead and just start off by apologizing again that this isn't live. I cannot figure out this broadcasting application on my computer. I pulled up every tutorial that I can find to try to get this working and have tried to do the steps that they tell you to do. But the problem is that the OBS software has done an update, which I think is supposed to blend with the new Mac update we just had about, I don't know, probably about a month ago now, I guess. And so the new software and the new update on the computer, it's just not meshing. It's not blending. And so for some reason, I can get the visual and it looks good as far as turning on the webcam, but I can't get the sound right. And it's like echoing and having double sound and all that. So we're still working on it. It's not that I have forgotten or that I don't want to do this live. I just cannot figure it out. I'm not very computer savvy at all. So my husband's tried to help me, but he's not real familiar with the Mac programming. So he hasn't been able to figure it out. And my son has just been extremely busy with school and all the stuff that he's been doing. So he hasn't had a chance to try to help me figure it out either. So don't give up on us. We're still working on it. I don't know that we'll have it figured out before next week, but we're trying our best to do that because I do want to be able to go live with these so that I can talk to you guys as you're sending in comments or questions. So it's still just a work in progress. At any rate, like I said, I hope that you guys had a great weekend. We had a great weekend, but we had a busy one. If you guys watched the vlogs from the weekend, you know we had our big Christmas gala at the church with the women, and most of you got a chance to hear a little bit of my daughter as she was the guest speaker for the first time ever. Pastor's wife asked her if she would do that, and she did a great job. As a matter of fact, late last night I was able to finally upload her whole little message. So if you get a chance and you want to take a listen to that, I think it's about 14 minutes long, so it's not super long. You have plenty of time to listen to that. She did really, really well, and her dad and I are very proud of her. And then just the normal busy schedule that we have every Sunday. So we had a good weekend, but of course a tiring weekend by the time we got home last night. But I thought I would go ahead and take a couple of minutes today to talk to you guys about the mold situation in our house, because several of you have commented about that on the last few vlogs. Because I've mentioned that to you, and some of you have been confused about the mold and how we got rid of it and all that kind of stuff. So I thought I'd take just a couple of minutes today and touch on that a little bit. About probably in 2006, I guess, it's been a long time ago, we started experiencing different type of health issues around here. My son was getting chronic sinus infections. I started having problems with my sinuses. Along about that time, somewhere around there, I can't remember exactly the year that it came up, my daughter had a spot, had come up on her tongue that her dentist found that concerned him greatly. And he wanted to have a biopsy done of that and send it off for testing, because at first I believe he was thinking that it could be a little cancer sore that had come up on her tongue. So we sent that off for testing, and come to find out it was something called lichen planus that normally kids that young don't get. She was 12 when they found it on her. And that is an autoimmune disease where the body is attacking itself because of some type of invader that really the doctors just couldn't figure out. But it was very uncommon that anybody that young suffered from such a thing. Then, of course, my husband had gone through different physical issues himself. And it was like we all had stuff that started happening physically, yet the pieces weren't connecting for us that they may all be related because our symptoms were all different. Around that time, probably, I don't know, maybe, I guess probably about a year into it, after all the health issues started, I started smelling what I thought was a mold smell, like an old, musty. If you guys have ever been into a really, really old home and you smelled that just like must, or not really mildew, I don't really know how to describe it, just the smell of an old, musty home is what I thought I was starting to smell around the house here. And of course, the kids didn't know at that time, they were a lot younger, what that kind of smell would be. And whenever I would mention it to my husband, he couldn't smell anything. He's like, no, it just smells normal to me. So I thought that I was smelling a smell that would indicate that we might have some kind of issues going on, but nobody else could smell it but me. So I thought, okay, well, maybe we don't. But the health issues kept getting progressively worse. This went on for a couple of years because to look inside of our home, you could not see mold anywhere. It's not like our house was just old and getting in bad condition and you could see mold on your walls and stuff. You couldn't see it anywhere. We would walk through, everything looked fine, everything looked normal. When we purchased this home, we got it when my father-in-law passed away in '98. And we basically redid the whole thing. We didn't take sheetrock off of the walls, but it is a mobile home, so we had taken out all the little slats that where they put sheetrock together. They put this little thin piece of trim there to kind of hide that because they don't do any mudding or any of that in most mobile homes. If you have been in a mobile home or you own one, then you know what I'm talking about. So anyway, we had redone all that. We put in new toilets. We took out the cabinetry in the kitchens and bathrooms and had all the new cabinets put in. So everything looked still practically brand new. And we couldn't see or detect a problem anywhere. Well, after this went on for quite a while, one afternoon I was standing over in this area. What is now the dining room used to be just like an additional part of the living room. And we had a fireplace that was on an angle here in the corner. And as I was standing over here on this side of the room, it was raining outside, and I heard what I thought sounded like water leaking in the fireplace. And I started to notice a few weeks before that when I would walk on this side of the room, that smell, that odor of that musty smell would get stronger. Well, of course, my husband would sniff all around and he couldn't smell anything in the fireplace. But the day that I started hearing that water dropping in the fireplace, I knew. And I told him, I said, I really believe we've got a leak in that fireplace. And I think that's why we're smelling what we're smelling. So we went to Lowe's and we bought one of the little Petri dishes that you can just set around in your home and you capture spores and then you let it incubate for 48 hours. It's supposed to take 48 hours for mold to show up if you have any, because naturally, of course, there's mold in the air everywhere you go. You're never going to be in an environment that's completely without mold, especially here in Florida. But the type of mold that's just normally in the air should take about 48 hours to show up. If you have a problem, it will show up sooner. Our Petri dish showed the evidence of mold in about 15 hours. That's how fast it grew because that's how much we had. So we knew immediately at that point, okay, we definitely have a mold issue in this house that we're going to have to take care of. So trying to make a very long story short, we called in some professionals, an environmentalist agency from up in Jacksonville, and had them come and do some severe testing on the house where they actually drill holes into the wall and they have infrared devices that they can put in the walls to look around that shows them mold spores, because you've got to remember, mold spores are microscopic and cannot be seen with the human eye. By the time you see even just the dot of a section of mold that would look like a period on a piece of paper, you got to think that is millions of spores that have jumped on top of each other to create it visible enough for you to see it with your eye. So they have to be able to detect mold spores with infrared equipment so that they can see this microscopic stuff. They went all throughout the house, drilling in walls and going under the mobile home and drilling down that way just to see, okay, is it maybe contained just to the fireplace, or do we have more of a severe issue because of all the health issues? I had gotten so sick, literally. There were days that I couldn't even hardly get off of the couch. and I would homeschool the kids and sit there with my head on the desk practically the whole time and just muddling through the best I could because my health had really gotten that bad. So after they sent off to their lab and did all the testing and we got the report back, it came back that we had mold everywhere. We were infested with it. Come to find out, what had actually happened was about a year and a half before we got the home in '98, my husband's father had had the siding on the outside of the mobile home replaced. And when they put the trim around the windows, whoever it was that had done it back then had actually installed the J channels upside down. So for all of those years, every time it would rain, and you know here in Florida, it rains a lot. Every time it would rain, the water was actually being drained down behind the outside, the siding of the mobile home, right down the base of our windows, which caused such a problem that it was eating through the 2x4s and eating through the plywood that was on the outside of the mobile home, although we couldn't see it on the inside. However, when we started digging around and started pulling things out, we did notice where some of the sheetrock on the inside was actually damaged on the interior and was just about to eat through to the inside where we would have been able to see it all. So it just was a mess. I mean, we had literally, when we pulled the siding off of the outside of the mobile homes, and if I can find some pictures, I'll insert them so you can see them. There is a page on Facebook that one of our friends had created to try to help us raise money for a while, that there are some pictures on there too. So I'll include that link down in the description box in case you guys want to go and check that out where some more pictures are. But literally the 2x4s were being eaten through by this mold. So we were left in a quandary. What do we do? This mobile home was so old that, in all honesty, it really was not worth the investment to replace everything, because you guys know if you have a mobile home, the minute you pull them off the lot to set them up on your property, they're already devalued, just like when you buy an automobile. And not only that, I believe this home is in 1982, somewhere around there, 1980 or 1982. It was old. And so we thought, okay, well, we really don't want to invest that much money. We had a couple of different professionals had come in about the possibility of cleaning it. You can't clean mold. Let me go ahead and put your mind in that spot right here, because people would tell us just spray it down, spray it with bleach, or use the vinegar and just cover over it, double layer your sheetrock. And we were given a lot of suggestions by a lot of different people because it's assumed that mold can be killed or cleaned. When these professionals came in, and you can find websites all over the internet that will tell you how to kill mold, but the professionals who work with this all the time from the environmentalist side, she explained to us that you cannot kill mold. When you spray the mold, you will stunt it so it cannot continue to grow, but that the spot that remains behind, and you guys know if you've ever cleaned grout in a bathroom and you couldn't get all that mold and mildew off and you can still see the residue, the mold is not actually dead, that the residue that you see is still toxic. All you've done is prevented it from growing, if that makes sense to you. So we had another professional come in for a second opinion, and that person told us the exact same thing, and they both told us you're going to have to get it out, period. You can't clean it, you can't spray it, you can't stunt its growth and still stay healthy living in the environment. It's got to be removed. Everything's going to have to be dug out and rebuilt. The estimate that was given us to do that was about $20,000 to $25,000, and we thought, this home is not worth putting that kind of money in. The problem is that we still owed a mortgage on this home from when we had purchased it after my father-in-law passed away. We bought it from the rest of the family, so we still owed money. And we were left with a choice at that point. Do we walk away? Do we take the loss? Do we file bankruptcy? Do we invest the money to fix it up? We had talked to a couple realtors, and we had talked to them about, if we disclose the fact that it has mold, do you think that there's any way to sell this, maybe for what we just owe on it, to a couple that has the money they can invest to perk it back up and have a nice place like for a summer home or that kind of thing, winter home. And of course, no realtor would touch it, not with a mold issue, because even if someone was willing to come in and buy it, that's still a liability on their end. And we understood that. We just were trying to exhaust all possibilities. We went to state agencies for help. We went to our insurance, but because our insurance could not pinpoint a definitive natural occurrence that would have caused the mold, the rain in and of itself is not enough. There had to be like a hurricane you could pinpoint, or a tornado, or something of that nature where they could say, yes, it's because of this. It couldn't just be because of erosion of time. When we dug everything apart and realized that they had not even joined the seam of the mobile home together correctly at the time of installation all those years ago, we even contacted our state insurance division and said, look, the home was never even put together properly, and we can prove that. But because it had been so long, the insurance didn't cover installation.